Everything is ready, Jacob's voice said on the phone, low and clear. Once we sleep together tonight, the sacrifice is done. She will die slowly, so no one will notice anything wrong, just like my 2 previous wives. Olivia froze at the bedroom doorway. The corridor light threw a thin line across the polished floor. Her bare feet were cold. Her hands, still smelling of onions and pepper from the kitchen, trembled against the wall. She watched the slightly open door and saw his shadow move across the wardrobe. The word sacrifice crawled into her chest like ice. Her wedding gele lay on a chair by the hallway, soft gold in the dim light. A new ring shone on her finger. Minutes earlier, she had been stirring a pot of okra soup, smiling to herself, telling her heart to relax. Now her heart beat hard, like a drum in a crowded Lagos street. "Calm down," Jacob whispered into his phone. "No mistakes this time." This time, Olivia covered her mouth so a sound wouldn't escape. The smell of stew and fried fish drifted from the kitchen. Outside, a distant generator hummed. Somewhere in the compound, a guard coughed. A nightbird cried. The world kept moving like nothing was wrong. But everything inside her had changed. She stepped back slowly, toes feeling for the edges of the rug. Another step. Another breath she had to force. Then she turned and slipped away from the door, the words chasing her down the hallway like footsteps. Hook ends. 2 months earlier, the world had felt bright and simple. Olivia was 35, beautiful in a quiet, gentle way, with kind eyes that always looked like they were about to forgive someone. She worked as an assistant manager at a small boutique in Surulere, folding dresses and helping customers choose colors that matched their skin. She loved rain after heat, the smell of books from street stalls, and watching children dance at parties. But people talked. "A whole 35, someone had said behind her back at church. "Is she waiting for angels?" Another voice had joked. The words cut, tiny and sharp, but she smiled anyway. She prayed every night and told herself that her time would come. She was tired of the whispers, tired of aunties counting her age with their eyes, tired of neighbors asking fake sweet questions. Then she met Jacob at a night party in Lagos. The hall on Victoria Island sparkled with glass and light. Music floated like warm air. Olivia had gone with her friend, Amara, just to see the new band and eat small chops. She wore a simple green dress and carried a small bag with a lucky verse folded inside. She wasn't trying to be noticed. That didn't stop Jacob. He walked in with the easy confidence of a man who owned the room. Tall, smooth, a soft beard trimmed neat. His suit looked like a quiet secret. People greeted him with respect that sounded like fear. Someone whispered near the drinks table, "That's Jacob Anderson, the billionaire." Jacob's group. He was 40, but had the glow of fresh power. He laughed like he didn't need anyone, then turned and saw Olivia. Their eyes met. She looked away, surprised by the sharpness of his gaze, but he was already walking toward her. "You don't belong to the crowd," he said, smiling. "What's your name?" "Olivia," she answered, a little shy, a little pleased. "Olivia," he repeated, tasting the sound. "I like how it feels." They talked. Not for long, just enough for him to guess her favorite color, green, like her dress, and for her to hear how he said simple things like he was letting her into a private circle. When he asked for her number, she gave it. When he sent flowers the next morning, she kept them close to her bed. When he took her to lunch, the waiter somehow already knew her name. He moved fast. On the third day, under a sky full of hot Lagos sun, Jacob went down on one knee beside the lagoon and held up a ring that looked like a star. People around them clapped. Phones came up. A soft wind made the water shiver. "Marry me," he said. "Let me end your waiting." Something inside Olivia burst open. She saw every insult fall away, every whisper close like a door. She saw Sunday rice at a big dining table, tall Christmas trees, and children with her eyes. She heard herself laughing in a house where people finally kept quiet about her age. She said yes, red flags did wave, but only a little, and she told herself not to be silly. He didn't like taking pictures. He asked her not to post their outings. "Privacy is safety, Olivia," he said with a warm smile that cooled quickly when she asked again. He had 2 large rings on a chain he never took off. He took phone calls at odd hours and stepped away to talk, even when they were alone. He changed the topic easily when she asked about his past. "Before?" he said once, eyes drifting. I prefer now. Amara worried. It's too fast, she said one evening, sitting on Olivia's couch, chewing on a toothpick, like she did when she was thinking hard. You know nothing about him. I know enough, Olivia answered. He is kind to me. He respects me. He chose me. And you are tired, Amara said softly. That's what scares me. The wedding was beautiful and fast. A hall in Lekki bright with gold and white, flowers on every table, a band that sounded like joy. People you only see on the news walked in and smiled as if they had always been friends. Olivia's mother cried quietly. Auntie Ngozi danced and sprayed money. Olivia looked at Jacob and tried to hold her happiness steady. He looked back with eyes that didn't blink much. Forever, he whispered at the altar, voice sliding like silk. That night, in the private house he kept in Ikoyi, the compound lights made the trees look like they were standing guard. The staff were quick and silent. The bedroom smelled like new sheets and expensive perfume. Olivia's cheeks still carried a soft glow from the day. She tied a wrapper around her waist and went to the kitchen. Cooking made her calm. She wanted to serve him something warm and simple. She hummed as she chopped okra and added crayfish, pepper, and tiny bits of smoked fish. Her ring caught the light and flashed back at her. When she returned with a tray, the bedroom door was almost closed. She heard his voice first, then his words. Everything is ready. Once we sleep together tonight, the sacrifice is done. She will die slowly, so no one will notice anything wrong. Just like my 2 previous wives. The room tilted. Olivia leaned into the wall until the paint pressed a line across her palm. 2 previous wives? She had asked if he'd been married. He had brushed it away like dust. Die slowly? She felt her chest shrink. He kept talking, each word a nail. The last time, the doctor said mysterious illness. Jacob murmured, no questions. This time will be smoother. Make sure the place is set by midnight. Olivia's mind ran, tripping over pictures. 2 women with names she didn't know. A pattern. A dark plan hiding inside shiny things. She felt a scream rise and had to swallow it down. Her throat hurt. At that moment, the corridor felt longer than any road in Lagos. She turned and walked floated back to the kitchen. The spoon sat in the pot where she left it, half sunk like a drowning thing. She put the tray down. Her hands moved by themselves, wiping the counter, switching off the gas, sliding the pot aside. She took a breath, then another. Think, Olivia. Think fast. Don't run. Not yet. Her phone lay on the counter. She picked it up. Her thumb shook, but found the emergency number. The ring sounded like a bell in an empty church. Police emergency. What is your situation? A voice said. My name is Olivia, she whispered, eyes watching the hallway. I am in danger. My husband plans to kill me tonight. She gave the address. The words tasted unreal, like acting in a movie she didn't choose. The voice asked her to stay on the line. She couldn't. She ended the call. She looked down. She had no shoes on. Her bag was on the living room sofa. Her ID, her keys, her small pink lip balm. All of it sat there like a life she might never see again. She didn't care. She couldn't care. She tied her wrapper tighter. She wiped her eyes. From the bedroom, the phone call ended. The house went quiet in a heavy way. She heard soft footsteps. His. Coming. Olivia slipped out of the kitchen and into the shadow of the hallway. The big clock in the sitting room ticked. The gate outside creaked softly in the night wind. The guard's radio whispered a distant station. She took the side door, the one that led through a small garden with white stones and short palms. The stones bit at her feet, but she didn't stop. She kept her breathing small. At the garden's iron gate, the metal felt cool under her hands. She lifted the latch slowly so it wouldn't scrape. The gate opened just enough to let her pass. She pushed, her heart a siren in her ears. She stepped out. A hand grabbed her wrist like a trap. You must be joking, Jacob's voice said behind her, now calm and close. His fingers tightened. Where do you think you're going? Jacob's fingers clamped around Olivia's wrist like iron, his grip so tight her bones ached. The sharp smell of his cologne mixed with the damp night air, and the garden's palm fronds whispered in the wind as if they knew something terrible was about to happen. Jacob, please. Olivia's voice trembled. But she kept her eyes low, trying to hide the terror swimming inside them. She knew she couldn't show him the fear that might make him act faster. "You think you can walk away from me?" His tone was calm, too calm, the kind of voice that could turn deadly in a heartbeat. I forgot something in the car," she lied, forcing her lips into a weak smile. "Just wanted to get it before she could finish, he yanked her toward the house. The force nearly threw her off balance, her bare feet scraping against the cold garden stones. The main door loomed ahead, the warm glow inside now feeling like the light of a trap. Her mind screamed for a way out. She couldn't run, he was too strong. She couldn't fight, he was too dangerous. Then, just as his other hand reached for the door handle, a beam of light cut through the night. "Stop right there, police!" The shout came from behind them, followed by the heavy thud of boots on gravel. 3 uniformed officers emerged from the darkness, their torches blinding in the gloom. Jacob froze, still gripping her wrist. His head turned slowly, his eyes narrowing at the sight. "Who called you?" His voice was low, almost amused. Olivia's heart pounded against her ribs. She didn't answer. She couldn't. The officers closed in, their hands resting near their holstered weapons. "Let her go now," the lead officer commanded. Jacob's grip tightened for a fraction of a second before he released her, shoving her away like she was nothing. She stumbled, but caught herself, backing toward the officers as if they were the only wall between her and death. "Do you know who I am?" Jacob's voice rose, his calmness cracking. "I'm Jacob Anderson, CEO of Jacob's Group. You think you can just walk into my home?" The officer stepped forward, cutting him off. "We know exactly who you are, sir. And we have more than enough reason to be here. You're under arrest for attempted murder and suspected involvement in multiple homicide cases." Olivia's knees almost gave out. Multiple homicide cases. The words felt like they wrapped around Jacob like a shadow. She hadn't told the police about his past wives. How could they already know? Jacob laughed, a short, cold sound that made her skin crawl. "You people are wasting your time." But even as he said it, she saw his jaw tighten, a flicker of unease breaking through. The officers moved in. One reached for his hands, pulling them behind his back. Jacob didn't resist, but his eyes locked on Olivia, burning with something that wasn't quite anger and wasn't quite fear. It was a promise. "This isn't over," he said, his voice low enough that only she could hear. Her blood turned to ice. The click of handcuffs echoed in the still night, followed by the sound of the officers reading him his rights. They led him toward the gate, past the stunned guard who stood frozen, his radio still crackling faintly. Olivia stood there, her breathing ragged, her wrapper slipping loose at her waist. The garden lights buzzed faintly above, and the scent of the half-cooked soup drifted faintly from the kitchen. An ordinary smell in a night that was anything but ordinary. She knew it wasn't over. Jacob's eyes had told her so. And if he had the power to hide 2 wives in his past, she wondered just how far his reach could go, even from inside a prison cell. But for now, she was free. Or at least, she wanted to believe she was. The next morning, Olivia sat in her small living room in the quiet suburb she once called home, a place she had left behind, thinking she would never return. The air smelled of dust and old curtains, the kind of smell that made memories rise, whether you wanted them or not. She had barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Jacob's face from the night before, those cold eyes, the warning in them, the grip on her wrist. The kettle whistled in the kitchen, but she didn't move to get it. Instead, she stared at her phone, the police contact still saved at the top of her call log. Her mind kept replaying the words she'd overheard. "Once we sleep together tonight, she will die slowly, just like my 2 previous wives. 2 wives, 2 deaths. 2 lives erased before hers." The police had told her Jacob would be processed immediately, but she knew money and influence had a way of bending rules. What if he was already out? What if he sent someone after her? A knock at the door jolted her from the thought. Her heart thudded hard against her ribs. She tiptoed to the peephole, holding her breath. On the other side was a tall man in plain clothes, a police badge hanging around his neck. "Mrs. Olivia Anderson?" he said when she opened the door just a crack. She hesitated before nodding. "My name is Inspector Daniel. I'm part of the investigation team on your husband's case. May I come in?" She opened the door fully, and he stepped inside, glancing around as if checking for danger. "First of all," he began, sitting at the edge of her couch, "I want to assure you Jacob is still in custody. But there's something you should know." Her stomach tightened. "What is it?" He pulled out a brown file folder and laid it on her table. Inside were photographs, two different women, both beautiful, both smiling in ways that made their eyes look alive. The inspector pointed to the first photo. Juliana Okoro married Jacob in 2012. She died less than a year later. The official report said, complications from a sudden illness. No autopsy was performed. He flipped to the next. Margaret Anderson married him in 2016. Died in 2017. Again, mysterious illness. No questions asked. Olivia felt her hands tremble. How did you know to look into this?" "Truth is, Mrs. Anderson, you're not the first person to call the police about him. We've had quiet whispers for years, but no evidence. Your phone call last night and the recording of your conversation with the dispatcher finally gave us something solid to act on." "Recording?" "Yes," the inspector said. "Standard protocol. It captured your fear, your urgency. It'll be powerful in court." Olivia's throat tightened. "You think he killed them?" "I don't think, Mrs. Anderson." "I know," the inspector said. "And the evidence we're gathering now could prove it." She leaned back into the couch, staring at the ceiling. The reality of it pressed down on her chest. She had been one night away from joining those women. The inspector's voice softened. "I'm telling you this because Jacob has connections. Powerful ones. We're moving fast to freeze his assets before he uses them to buy influence." "Freeze his assets?" "Yes. His houses, cars, accounts all under government seizure until this case is closed. And if what we find is what we think it is, he'll lose it all." The kettle in the kitchen had long stopped whistling, leaving the room in an eerie silence. Olivia wrapped her arms around herself. "He looked at me last night, like it wasn't over." Inspector Daniel's expression hardened. "That's why you're under police protection now. We'll have officers watch your home day and night until he's behind bars for good." She nodded, though it didn't bring the comfort she hoped for. Outside, the rumble of a police vehicle drifted through the window. Inside, Olivia realized that Jacob's arrest was just the beginning. The more they uncovered, the more dangerous this would get, not just for her, but for anyone standing in the way of his secrets. And if Jacob had been hiding this much in plain sight, she couldn't help but wonder, what else was buried in the dark? The courthouse in Ikeja was packed. Journalists crowded the steps, shoving microphones toward anyone who might speak. The morning sun glinted off camera lenses, and the low hum of a restless crowd filled the air. Inside, the courtroom buzzed with whispers. People weren't here just for justice. They were here for the spectacle. Olivia sat in the witness waiting area, her hands clasped so tightly that her knuckles turned white. She was dressed in a simple navy gown, no makeup except for a little powder to keep her face from looking as tired as she felt. Two female officers sat beside her, their presence both a comfort and a reminder of how real this was. She could hear Jacob's voice before she saw him. It was calm, even charming, as he greeted his lawyer and exchanged small talk with a few men in the gallery who were clearly there to support him. When he finally entered the courtroom, his suit was perfectly pressed, his beard neatly trimmed. He looked every inch the billionaire CEO, untouchable, confident, dangerous. But his eyes found her almost immediately. And in that brief glance, Olivia felt the same cold promise she had seen the night of her escape. This isn't over. The judge entered. Everyone rose. The trial began. The prosecutor wasted no time laying out the charges. Attempted murder, manslaughter in connection with the deaths of Juliana Okoro and Margaret Anderson, and participation in an occult syndicate. The gallery erupted in murmurs at the last accusation: occultism. The word had weight in Nigeria. It was whispered about, feared, dismissed in public, but believed in private. Jacob's lawyer objected instantly, his voice sharp. "Your Honor, these claims are baseless and sensational. My client is a respected businessman. Respected businessmen don't have two wives die mysteriously in the same pattern." The prosecutor cut in. The judge silenced them both with a single raised hand. "Let the evidence speak." The first witness was a housemaid who had worked for Jacob during his marriage to Margaret. She was small, nervous, her hands trembling as she took the oath. I saw things, she began, voice barely above a whisper. Sometimes at night, he would go to the basement with strangers. They wore robes, black robes. There was chanting, and after Madame Margaret got sick, the chanting stopped. Gasps rippled through the room. Jacob's lawyer pounced. You're telling us you saw men in robes in a billionaire's home and you didn't report it? Convenient that you remember now. The maid's eyes dropped. I was afraid. Her testimony was shaky, but the next witness made the room go still. It was Dr. Ido Wu, the physician who had attended to both of Jacob's late wives. They came to me with similar symptoms: fatigue, chest pains, rapid weight loss, he explained, flipping through medical reports. In both cases, there was no clear diagnosis, and both women refused to stay in the hospital after their husbands visited them privately. Are you suggesting, the prosecutor asked, that Jacob's visits made their conditions worse? The doctor hesitated, then nodded slowly. Yes. Jacob leaned toward his lawyer, whispering furiously. When Olivia's turn came, her legs felt heavy. She took the stand, feeling every eye in the room press against her skin. Mrs. Anderson, the prosecutor began, please tell the court what happened on the night of your wedding. She took a breath, steadying her voice. I was in the kitchen. Jacob was in the bedroom. On the phone. I overheard him say everything was ready. That once we slept together that night, the sacrifice would be done. He said I would die slowly, just like his two previous wives. The room erupted. The judge called for order, but the whispers kept snaking through the air. And what did you do? I called the police, Olivia said simply. I didn't take my bag, my shoes, nothing. I just ran. The prosecutor nodded. No further questions. Jacob's lawyer approached, smiling like a man who thought he had already won. Mrs. Anderson, you say you overheard a conversation. Couldn't it have been about something else? Perhaps business? You had just married a powerful man. Maybe you misunderstood. Olivia's gaze didn't waver. There's no misunderstanding when someone says, she will die slowly. For the first time, Jacob's lawyer didn't have a quick comeback. As the day wore on, more witnesses came forward. Former employees, distant associates, even a man who admitted to being part of the occult group before breaking away. His testimony was chilling. Jacob brought women, the man said flatly. He offered them in exchange for wealth and protection. Once the ritual was complete, their health would fail until they died. That's how the vow works. The court was silent. Even the air seemed to stop moving. The judge called for adjournment, but the weight of what had been revealed lingered. Olivia sat frozen, her mind spinning. This wasn't just about her anymore, it was about exposing an entire network of evil. And somewhere deep down, she knew Jacob wouldn't go down without trying to take someone with him. The final day of the trial felt different. The courthouse wasn't just full, it was overflowing. People pressed against the walls, their faces tense with curiosity and outrage. Security officers lined the hallways, keeping order as journalists jostled for a better view. Olivia sat near the front, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. She hadn't slept much the night before. Every time she closed her eyes, she imagined Jacob slipping free from justice, walking back into the world with that cold smile, ready to finish what he had started. But today, she was determined to see this through. When Jacob entered, the crowd's noise dimmed to a low hum. He was dressed impeccably in a dark suit, walking with the poise of a man who refused to believe his world was collapsing. His eyes swept the room, stopping on Olivia for a heartbeat. The smirk he gave her was faint, but it carried the same unspoken threat. I am not afraid. The judge took his seat. We are here for the final presentation of evidence and the court's verdict. The prosecutor's closing argument was a blade sharpened over weeks of testimony. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not a case of bad luck in marriage. This is a pattern calculated, deliberate, and fueled by greed. 2 wives dead. A third woman saved only by sheer courage and a timely call to the police. Witness after witness confirmed Jacob Anderson's ties to occult practices designed to bring wealth at the cost of human life. He paused, letting the words hang heavy. Wealth built on blood will always collapse. Today, we ask this court to tear down what he has built and ensure no other life is stolen by this man's hands. Jacob's lawyer rose, his voice calm but strained. Your Honor, members of the jury, we've heard tales, dramatic, shocking tales, but where is the hard proof? There is no video of rituals, no physical evidence linking my client directly to these alleged deaths. This case is built on emotion and coincidence. If you condemn a man on that, you open the door for any successful person to be destroyed by rumor. He sat down, his shoulders stiff. The judge's gavel struck once. The court will recess for deliberation. The wait felt like hours, though it was less than one. Olivia sat still, watching the jurors file out and return. Their faces were unreadable, their eyes fixed ahead. The judge's voice was steady as he read, "In the matter of the state versus the state. Jacob Anderson, we find the defendant guilty of attempted murder, guilty of manslaughter, in the deaths of Juliana Okoro and Margaret Anderson, and guilty of participation in an occult criminal syndicate." Gasps erupted in the room. Olivia's heart pounded. Jacob didn't flinch. He only turned his head slightly toward her, his eyes holding hers for a second longer than she could bear. "Jacob Anderson," the judge continued, "you are hereby sentenced to 20 years in prison. All assets obtained through these crimes, houses, vehicles, accounts, are to be seized by the state. This court is adjourned." The gavel's final strike echoed like a closing door. As the guards moved to escort Jacob out, a voice rose above the shuffle of movement. "This isn't the end," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Remember that." The officers pushed him forward, and the heavy courtroom doors closed behind them. Olivia exhaled, the weight on her chest loosening for the first time in weeks. Inspector Daniel came to her side. "It's over," he said quietly. She nodded, but in her heart, she knew something the inspector didn't. Men like Jacob didn't stop existing just because they were locked away. His power was built on fear, and fear had a way of reaching beyond prison walls. Weeks later, she was settling back into her modest life, slowly learning to sleep through the night. She had joined a support group for women who had escaped abusive or dangerous marriages. She even smiled more now, though it was a smile earned through scars. Then, one evening, as she returned from the market, she found an envelope slid under her door. Inside was a single piece of paper with just 6 words written in bold, black ink. "We keep our promises, Olivia." Her blood ran cold. Jacob never made it to the 3rd year of his sentence. In prison, he managed to smuggle in a toxic substance. One morning, guards found him lifeless in his cell. Officially, it was ruled a suicide. But the note Olivia had kept hidden told her otherwise. Jacob had wanted her to live with the knowledge that even in death, his shadow lingered. Life moved on, and Olivia learned her lesson in the harshest way possible. Desperation could open the door to danger. Years later, when she met Johnson, a kind, hard-working businessman, she didn't rush. She asked questions. She dug into his past. Only when she was certain did she marry him. Their wedding was small, attended only by close friends and family. 1 year later, they were blessed with twins, a boy named Joshua and a girl named Juliana. And while the world soon forgot Jacob Anderson's name, Olivia never did. His rise to power and his tragic fall became a whispered warning in the city. Wealth built on blood will end in blood. If you like this story, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories.